You people always think you can just waltz in here with your dirty money. Those were the first words Penelope Blackthorne screamed at me, and let me tell you, I'd barely set foot on the front porch. Picture this. It's barely 8:30 a.m. On a Tuesday. I'm hauling a refrigerator by myself. Sweat stinging my eyes when I look up and see three police cruisers rolling in sirens, howling like they're raiding a cartel. Yeah, that happened. And behind me, stacked up to the rafters, 47 boxes fresh from the Federal Witness Protection Program, big ugly government seals stamped right on the side like I needed anyone asking more questions than I already had. What Penelope didn't know, what none of them knew, was who she'd picked a fight with. That HOA hall she strutted around in, the one she'd run as president for 15 years, was sitting smack on land my family owned since 1842. That's not a typo. And just 3 days before I'd finally gotten my hands on the original deed, straight from a trunk the FBI had locked up for 8 years, part of the evidence from my uncle's murder case. If you're thinking my life was a mess, you're right. My name's Garrison Blackwater, and 72 hours earlier I was just another guy in witness protection trying to pretend a new identity felt like home. Some mornings I'd wake up, look around, and almost forget I'd spent the last 8 years dodging the Castellano crime family, the kind of folks who don't send Christmas cards if you testify against them. The day I moved into Silver Pine Lake started just like all the rest, in witness protection, coffee paranoia, and a head count of my exits. The U.S. Marshals swore up and down this was the last stop, my own fresh start. They set me up in a colonial with peeling paint and crooked shutters, the kind of place realtors call full of historical character, which is code for nobody's wanted this dump in decades. The price tag was so low it practically screamed run away, but Rodriguez, my FBI handler, grinned and handed me the keys anyway. Perfect cover story, he said. Nobody asked questions about a guy brave enough to buy the cursed Holloway house. Cursed. You'd think that word would make a person hesitate. But I was just grateful for a roof, and besides, after everything I'd been through, what's a little curse? So I'm standing there looking around at the ruins of somebody else's tragedy. And that's when the show across the street starts. Curtains twitch, faces pop up. Within 5 minutes, there's a whole peanut gallery on the sidewalk waiting to see who's dumb enough to move into the house with the bloody history. I guess they didn't expect the main attraction to be a guy in faded jeans unloading a refrigerator while trying not to make eye contact with the Fed's packing tape. That's when Penelope makes her grand entrance, pristine white Tesla coral blazer, platinum hair, sculpted like she was expecting a hurricane. She had 2 assistants in tow, each with a tablet, and an HOA badge like the Secret Service had decided the suburbs needed protecting. She didn't wait for pleasantries. "Stop right there," she barks. And even the movers freeze like she's got the authority to declare martial law. "This is private property, and you're trespassing." I put down the box marked kitchen. Fragile, wiped my hands on my jeans and tried to look neutral. Years of giving testimony to hostile lawyers taught me one thing: never let them see you sweat. "I'm the new owner." "Closed 3 days ago," I said. She didn't believe me, not for a second. Pulled out her phone like she was about to draw a 6-shooter. "The Holloway estate would never sell to someone like you, not without HOA approval." Someone like me, huh? I guess she meant a guy who looked like he worked for a living instead of inheriting the place. Before I could even get the deed out, she was already stabbing 911. "This is Penelope Blackthorne, president of the Silver Pine Lake HOA. We have intruders at 47 Lakeshore Drive. Unknown dangerous individuals." The movers looked at me, one of them mouthing good luck before disappearing into the truck. Gotta love neighborhood drama. The police rolled up in under 10 minutes, 3 patrol cars, lights blazing. Officer Hutchcraft stepped out, and you could see on his face that this wasn't his first Penelope rodeo. He asked for my documents, and when he saw the federal seals, his eyebrows hit his hairline. "Everything's in order," he said, handing the paperwork back, and just like that, Penelope's whole attitude changed. For a second, there was real fear in her eyes, like she'd just recognized a ghost. Blackwater, she whispered, like saying the name might summon the dead. For a heartbeat, I wondered if the marshals had messed up, if my new identity was somehow my old one. But I kept my mouth shut. Officer Hutchcraft gave her the standard warning, any more harassment, and she'd be cited. She wasn't done, though. I'm putting you on notice, Mr. Blackwater. This community has standards. You'll be getting your first inspection tomorrow at 8 a.m. She marched back to her Tesla, but not before whispering, "Some secrets are better left buried." Yeah, real neighborly. Welcome. That night the house felt colder, like I'd woken something up just by moving in. The floor creaked, pipes made whispering noises, and I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. In the kitchen, I found an old photograph wedged behind a cabinet. Yellowed with age, a family lined up in front of the house, maybe the 1920s. On the back it said, "The Blackwater family rightful owners of Silver Pine Valley, 1923. My hand shook just reading it. The next morning I found myself in the basement checking out those bleach stains the FBI mentioned. The concrete floor showed ghostly marks, and on the wall, under layers of paint, I uncovered a mural, Silver Pine Lake, as untouched wilderness, and at the center, a grand house. Painted at the bottom, Blackwater Manor Est, 1842. I barely had time to process it before Penelope showed up for her inspection squad. 6 people with clipboards, tape measures, and the smug confidence of people who'd never missed a brunch. Grass is too long, someone called. Mailbox not to code. Exterior paint unapproved. Penelope stood in my living room ticking off fines like she was announcing a lottery. $15,000 in violations this month alone. I told her this was harassment. "This is enforcement of standards," she replied, eyes glittering. "But if it's too much, there are buyers who'd be happy to take this property off your hands." I refused to back down. That's when the twist hit. One of her team stumbled into the basement and stopped cold at the mural. Penelope's face turned ghostly. "Cover that up. Now." I refused. "It's history," I said. "No, it's vandalism," she hissed. "This house, this land belongs to Silver Pine Lake. The Blackwaters lost any claim 100 years ago. Stir up trouble and you'll regret it." I asked what happened 100 years ago, and for a split second her composure broke. She knew exactly what had happened. She knew more than she'd ever admit. "Your uncle thought he could reclaim the past too," she whispered. "Look what happened to him." I called Agent Rodriguez. He brushed me off, told me I was just rattled from the move. But I knew then my placement in this house wasn't random. Someone wanted me here. That night, my next-door neighbor, a tiny lady in her 90s, knocked at my door. "You really a Blackwater?" she asked, eyes shining. "I've waited 60 years for one to come back." She handed me an album. Her father, the Old Town clerk, had kept every secret, every newspaper clipping, affidavit, and photo. Proof my family had been robbed, tricked out of the valley, murdered for their land, with the Blackthorns and Holloways behind it all. Turns out Penelope was a Holloway by birth. Her family had orchestrated every theft, every murder, even my uncle's death, and her power. It all came from the HOA built on a literal graveyard of my relatives. I was the secretary for 20 years, the neighbor said, handing me a brass key. "This'll open the HOA archives. Everything's in there. Time for justice, Mr. Blackwater." The next day, Penelope brought foreclosure papers to my door. 30 days to comply or you're out, she threatened. But I was ready. I held up the 1842 deed, my family's claim to every inch of Silver Pine Valley. "You've been squatting on stolen land for a century," I told her, "and I've got the proof." Her face went pale, but she tried one last threat. "You can't prove anything." "Watch me," I said, and this time it was her hand that trembled. That night, I called Sarah Ashford, the federal prosecutor investigating Silver Pine Lake for 3 years. "I have proof of conspiracy, fraud, and murder going back a century," I told her. "Can you come in tomorrow?" she asked. "Bring everything." That night, cars idled outside my house, wannabe tough guys trying to scare me. But after years of dodging real hitmen, I wasn't rattled. I documented everything. The next morning, I delivered boxes of evidence to Ashford Deeds affidavits, even the mural photos. DNA, too. Turns out my new name wasn't an accident. The FBI had put me right where they needed me, a Blackwater heir finally in place to blow up a century of lies. Ashford's team got their warrant. That evening, the emergency HOA meeting was standing room only. Penelope strutted to the podium, tried to whip up the crowd. I stood up, holding the deed. My family built this valley. It was stolen, and those who tried to take it back were murdered. The room erupted, phones out, neighbors shouting questions. Penelope tried to silence me, but the FBI walked in right on cue, warrants in hand, agents everywhere. Penelope, her husband, and half the board were arrested that night. The basement archives held everything: original deeds, forged transfers, payment records, even a journal detailing each Blackwater's death. And under the HOA hall, 12 bodies, my ancestors. 6 months later, the HOA was gone, the land restructured into a trust for the community. My family's name went from whispered tragedy to a symbol of justice. The house at 47 Lakeshore became a museum, and the old mural, a monument to the truth, was finally restored. Evelyn, my neighbor, lived to see it passing away with a smile. And Penelope life in federal prison, her empire crumbled. But the fight wasn't over. A week ago, a journal arrived at my door, my great-great-grandfather's. In it, he wrote about other stolen valleys, other families like ours, and a secret buried deep under Silver Pine Lake, a mineral worth killing for. This was never just about land. This was about power, and it stretched far beyond one HOA or one corrupt president. So I ask you, if someone tried to erase your family from history, would you walk away, or would you dig up every secret until justice was done? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you've ever stood up to a bully, especially one with a clipboard, smash that like button, because the story of the Blackwaters isn't over yet, and neither is the fight for what's right.